Today we're going to talk about the trailer or the preview for season 8, episode 4 of Game of Thrones. Of course, Arya is the woman of the hour after killing the Night King, but we are going to talk about the next episode. So one of the big unresolved things in the previous episode was that, who died and who didn't die. And I think the preview for episode 4 makes it very clear that if you didn't see somebody explicitly die, they didn't die. So Ghost is still alive. Let me see if I can bring you up a picture of Ghost. So if we go to the preview, Ghost is in the preview. Alright, so I'm going to bring up the image of Ghost. Now, if you go into the preview, it's like really small. It's like a really second where they're like burning the dead. They have some sort of funeral ceremony going on. And that's where you'll see Ghost. He's standing by Dany. And he's standing by, it looks like Royce from the Vale. Let's see, here we go. So here's the big overview there. That's where it's coming from, but I'm going to delete that because we want to... Oops, I deleted myself. Sorry about that. Yeah, alright, we'll put myself back in. We're going to go back. There we go. And then let me see if I can bring up the close-up image of Ghost. So, let's see. Image. Okay. Here you go. I close-upped into the preview. And there you can see there's Dany, there's Sam, there's Royce, there's Ghost right there. So, it seems like that, generally if somebody didn't die, then they're still around. So we got Ghost still around. Let me see if I can bring up Rheagal. Rheagal also shows up in the preview. Right, so you got Sansa looking over the Winterfell, and there's two dragons. Right, Drogon is kind of prominently featured, but you got Rhaegal and then you got Ghost. So basically, if you didn't see anybody, if you missed anybody, and you weren't sure they died, they didn't die. So if you kind of rewind episode 3. The Battle of Winterfell. I guess they're calling it The Long Night is the episode name. But you rewind the Battle of Winterfell, that scene where Jon is dodging Viserion. You see that Sam's still alive. Tormund's still alive. The Brienne's still alive. Of course, Missandei was still alive in the crypts. Varys was still alive. So the only people that died were like people you explicitly saw die. So there was like Theon, Dolorous Ned, or was it Dolorous Ed? Whoever was the Night Watch guy, last of the Night Watch. Then, the head of the Dothraki, he doesn't really have a name that because he never talks. What else? And let's see what else. We got, so Theon died with the Night King, and Jorah, that was the big death. Jorah Mormont died. Liliana Mormont died. But besides that, not a lot of really main characters, just secondary or tertiary characters died. Sorry about that, blowing my nose. I think that the I've always thought that Tormund kind of had a little plot armor in the sense that he's the last of the wildlings that we know, so he's probably gonna be needed to repopulate the north or something like that, whether it's with Brienne or not. I think what's interesting in the trailer is Jaime Lannister does not show up in the trailer. I did not see him in the trailer. I'd be interested to know what's happening with Jaime. Obviously, his sister featured prominently, and Euron featured prominently. You also got to see the ships from the Targaryen ships, so they had the Targaryen flags on there. I don't know if that's associated with Yara's fleet or if she's got her own fleet. I thought it was associated with Yara. It seemed like a lot of ships compared to what Yara said she had, but it certainly seemed like a lot less than Euron has. Going back to episode 3, just my take on the battle tactics. Obviously their plan worked out that they were able to lure the Night King and they were able to kill him. And that was their ultimate plan. But I would say that it didn't work great in the sense that I thought that the initial thing to have the cavalry go into the hordes, that didn't seem to make any sense to me. They had overwhelming numbers of the whites out there. I don't understand at all why you would have those whites to I don't understand why you'd have those. You'd have the cavalry charging the whites. Personally, I would have saved the cavalry. That is the Dothrakis. This doesn't. It's not. There we go. I would have saved the Dothrakis for late in the battle, not early in the battle. If anything, they were their mode of escape. They could have escaped on horseback, but they couldn't escape via they couldn't escape from. All right, I'm gonna have to pause it. Hold on. We'll be right back. Okay, and all right, so they kind of wasted the Dothraki. That was really their only chance to escape. They could escape through the crypts, maybe, but that was it. So let's look at episode 4. All right, so it seems like I think the big thing is that the queens are looking pretty smug. Queen Cersei and Queen Daenerys. They had a picture of the Starks looking pretty glum after all these people had died. So they're kind of. I think they're still playing up the Mad Queen aspect. I think the whole debate about is Jon going to assert the throne or Dany going to assert the throne. I think if they were in a committed relationship, and I'm not sure if they are, but I think they are, that it wouldn't be a big issue. That what's his is hers, and what's hers is his. So I don't see that is a huge issue personally. But Jon does have a history of going to war with his lovers, so he did. He did go to war with the actress whom he ended up marrying, Ygritte, and that didn't end well. So maybe it won't end well with. It won't end well with Dany either. All right, so we'll look at the odds. You know, the way the odds have changed. They've moved very much in favor of. Let's see. They've moved very much in favor of Jon Snow relative to last week. That the big thing hanging over Jon Snow was that he might die fighting the Night King. I think since that's been lifted, now we think that Jon is the favorite. He's 30% chance to sit the Iron Throne compared to everybody else. So the next closest is Bran at 12%, Sansa at 9%, Dany at 10%, Gendry at 8%, and Tyrion at 7%. So, if we look at what that was like last week, Jon's the big mover, and everybody else has pretty much stayed the same to sit the Iron Throne. So Bran's kind of moved down. Tyrion's probably the other big mover this week. Perhaps because of the reconciliation with him and Sansa. Now, you look at the armies. The armies are pretty decimated in terms of Dany's army. I'm still one that think that Dany didn't have to do this Battle of Winterfell, that she did it. It cost her dearly, and that she's kind of sacrificed more for this. Jon's kind of lost his reason d'etre, his reason for being around, which was fighting the others. And it's going to be interesting how he kind of shifts gears, what he cares about now that the others are gone. We expect this to be kind of a chatty episode. There may be some kind of treachery in this episode. You couldn't rule that out. There's another scene of a big banquet, which kind of hails back to the red and purple weddings. So hopefully everybody lives through that. I think they do. But I think that Cersei's got the naval superiority, but Dany has the air superiority. If she can deploy her dragons against the navies of Euron, then they could really do some damage. Fire on boats is not a good thing, and we saw that back in Marine when Dany returned after her sojourn with Drogon after they fled the fire pits, and then she went to Vaes Dothrak and killed all the Khals, and then came back and burned all the ships of the Masters. So that very same thing could happen to Euron's fleet with her dragons. And now that they got 2 riders, supposedly it'd be better, but I think it's a question of like where they engage in. I've never seen her get on a dragon in the middle of the sea, so she always got on land and then went out. So I don't know if they can pick up one of those big dragons at sea, but certainly the dragons do follow the boats at sea. So I guess we'll see. I think the other things that they've talked about is kind of Tyrion and Varys, their knowledge of King's Landing. They both know all the secret passageways in King's Landing. Are they going to do something with that knowledge? Are they going to send Arya as an assassin? Will Arya use the face of Jaime Lannister, who we did not see in this episode? Right? So there was the picture with there was the scene with Bran in the Godswood. Let's see if I can bring that up for you. Oops. Okay. We'll bring up an image here. Bran and the Gods would. With Jaime, right? Here's a picture of Jaime and the Gods would. So Jaime, right? He chatted with Bran and the Gods would, and basically what they said was that they were going to that why should Jaime care about what is going to come. So why should they care about what should come? So Jaime and Bran and the Gods would, because maybe that you know Jaime's not going to live through the battle. He obviously did live through the battle. I think it's pretty clear that Jaime did live through the battle, as did Bran, and so it's possible that Bran now is going to rat him out about the dirty deed he did to Bran, and maybe some of the other awful deeds that he did to, for instance, his kinsmen, or to the Karstarks, to Ned, all those wonderful things. And not all of those can be said to be at war, as he asserted. And clearly, it's not clear what his loyalties are now that the army of the dead is gone, right? So, um, so he may favor Cersei and the Lannisters' claims over Dany's claims, or Jon's claims, now that the army of the dead is gone. And so maybe that his allegiance with them is no longer solid. Okay, so I think we're back now. In terms of other odds, Jaime's seen to be the first Lannister to die, but that's only like 40%, pretty much tied with Cersei. Which Stark will die first? 40% say Arya, and then Sansa 30%, and Bran 30%. Um, let's see. It's still kind of about half the people think either Jaime or Arya will kill Cersei, or half the money thinks that. 10% chance that Cersei will not perish by the end of the season, and an 8% that Tyrion will fulfill the Valonqar prophecy. That's the other thing I want to talk about is Arya the Azor Ahai, right? Um, so there is kind of this Azor Ahai that's going to wield Lightbringer, and Lightbringer was this sword that's going to be flaming, and it was tempered by water, but it broke, and it was tempered by um, the heart of a lion, and it broke, and then it was tempered by um, the lover of the Azor Ahai, who would save the world, and that was put into her heart, and then it was good, and it would destroy the equivalent of the Night King. But I don't know. I mean, we don't have that for the cat's paw dagger, which was a Valyrian steel dagger that Arya used to kill the Night King. We don't know any of that history with the cat's paw dagger. There were other things like the person would be born under a red star, and of salt and smoke. I guess maybe, I don't know. Uh, and then there's a prince that was promised that would raise dragons from stone. And it seems like the only person we've seen that's raised a dragon from stone is Dany. The Valerian supposedly is gender neutral, So if it's a prince, it could be a princess, and if this Nisa who was stabbed in the heart with the sword of the Azor Ahai could be a man, but we don't really have any of those equivalents for. Um, I think the best explanation is the prophecy is not really come true. That prophecy that was driving so much of uh, Melisandre's actions. Melisandre was also one of the big deaths, right? She basically committed suicide at dawn. Um, Davos was going to try to kill her had she not committed suicide, but she had promised Davos that she would not, that she would die before dawn, and that's what she did. She killed herself. She was not killed by the White Walkers or the Whites, but she's like 900 years old or something, and she was kept alive by her magic brooch and stuff. So the I guess the other interesting thing is like Arya's list, right? Arya's list. So a lot of people on Arya's list, including Melisandre, who's helped her out subsequently. So obviously the Hound saved her. Beric Dondarrion saved her. Beric died. That was the other big death. Um, but those two people were both on her list, as was Melisandre. The only person really on people on her list that you could think that she might kill are Cersei and Ilyn Payne. But I think I mentioned in an earlier live stream that the actor for Ilyn Payne has not showed up for the series for a long time. We haven't seen him because he had cancer. I don't know if he filmed in season 8. He supposedly was cured of cancer and might be in King's Landing for a few scenes for that. I don't know. A lot of people were worried that we'd see kind of old Weiss like Hodor or maybe some of the Starks that we recognized from season 1 and 2 and 3 show up, like Rickon or Ned. They didn't really seem to show up, obviously, in the crypt. So the crypts did come alive. That was a fan theory that came alive. The other fan theory that was getting a lot of traction was that the Night King would not show up for the battle, that he would go to Old Town and go to King's Landing to sack those places with his dragon while he let the Whites go after it. That didn't turn out to be true, of course. So I think the big surprise is that, of course, the Night King was wiped out in 3. So I think a lot of people, and I think that was even in the odds that going forward, was that that the Army of the Living was favored to lose Winterfell, right? And a retreat was expected. And that was what I was looking for the whole end of the episode. I was like, how are they going to retreat? And in the end, they didn't have to. But so with that, it leaves 3 episodes with the battle for King's Landing, essentially. And it seems like Cersei is the big bad. I think that's right. I think that the others were peripheral to the story. They were not the core of the story. They never were the core of the story. The core of the story was the fight between the Lannisters and the Starks, actually. And I think that political squabble was the squabble through the Ice and Fire series and through most of it. The others were there. They were kind of lurking in the background. But they were, they did show up a little bit in episode 1 and more later, but they were not, that was not the core of what the story, I feel like, has been. It's been a political squabble that kind of went into the supernatural but it's kind of going back to a political squabble. And now uh, you know, now there's the whole thing that with Dany, right? So Dany has the power, and she's got the nuclear weapons of the dragons, the weapons of mass destruction. But she, but she does. She's a foreigner in most people's eyes, and she doesn't have the connections that a Sansa does or that a Jon does. And is she going to be able to overcome that? Is she going to be able to win over these people into her coalition or not? And it's looking like she's not going to be able to do that. But maybe her military power, her fire and blood, will be enough to sustain her to the Iron Throne. The odds makers don't believe that, right? So they're giving her like a 10% chance of winning the Iron Throne, where Jon's got a 30% chance, and several other Starks have about as good a chance as Dany does, despite her calling herself queen at the moment. See if I can find any other interesting things in the markets. Most people don't. I think the other thing is kind of the markets are still pretty much pricing 50-50 that both Jon and Dany, that is, either one of those will die. That is, it's about a 60% chance that Jon will survive to the end of the season, and a 40% chance that Dany will. So it's pretty close. It's pretty close to 50-50 for both. It's not believed that both. And there you go. I think that's the key thing, that why the conflict between Dany and Jon probably is not going to matter, because one of them is going to die. But the other one is that, I just, I don't think that there's a lot of evidence that, they have a lot better relationship, for instance, than Ned Stark had with his wife, right? That they have a relationship prior to their arranged marriage. Their love affair was not arranged, right? So, despite all the Targaryen silliness that we would not allow here, it's still I think that they're kind of in a better position than a lot of the people that are in these kind of political or arranged marriages, and I don't see why that they would think that they couldn't split the duties of the Iron Throne, and were they to take it, and why that wouldn't be better, right? Why it wouldn't be better that they were a partnership than one person vying for dominance, right? I think that one of the problems with Cersei's first marriage, right, with Robert Baratheon, was that it wasn't a partnership at all, right? Robert didn't really want the throne, but Cersei also had no rights to it. I think that if you came into a situation with Dany and Jon where they were in similar roles, people were used to them having kind of leadership positions, that would be a much stronger alliance than the alliance between Robert Baratheon and Cersei Lannister. Anyways, that's my 2 cents. All right, I'm going to stop it right now. We'll probably do some more live streams, especially one on next Sunday, leading up and through episode 4 of Game of Thrones. Bye.